Now we want to look at computing end-area volumes. So we're going to change DGN files, go to File, Open, and we want to open the end-area volume DGN file. Select that and open it up. And in this file, looks like we've got a River Road project. So we've got a corridor here called River Road, and it has some sort of bridge span in the middle of it. And what we want to do is get our end-area volumes. So I'm going to switch models. Actually, the cross sections have already been created for this. So if I just go to my models here and jump to the River Road cross sections, switch models to River Road cross sections, already been created. And we can jump straight into our end-area volumes tool. You can see here's one of our typical sections. And so I'm going to click on end-area volumes under the quarter modeling. It's the button here next to the letter R. It's the fourth button over. So click on end-area volumes, and I want to load up my settings again. So I'm going to go to Preferences. Click on my Preferences button. Load up the earthwork preference. Hit Load and Close. And then I want to define my settings. On the general settings, we want to make sure I have both of my surfaces toggled on, and we want to make sure, I guess the method should be set to standard. The units here, cubic yards, creating an XML report, plotting a mass haul diagram, and the ignore areas smaller than 1/10 of a foot. Those are all set correctly. I'm going to go ahead and as well look at my unsuitable material. We want to define an unsuitable material of 0.5, and actually I've already got that set up partially here. So you can put in your settings with a start station of 0, stop station of 150, which is all the way at the end. The style should be set to E unsuitable material. And then our cut and fill depth should be 0.5. Put all that in there and I hit add, or in this case I'm going to hit change to update that. And so this unsuitable material by station is going to strip away that top layer of soil. And then we want to go to classifications as well. We've got several classifications in here. You can see each one of our surfaces and our components are in here. And so for existing ground, we're going to set up our classifications as shown in the image there in the workbook. So for existing ground, we're going to set the cut factor to 1.1, and this would cover the entire, so this is cut and fill factors or shrink swell factors, compaction expansion. I'm going to put 1.1 for the cut and 1.25 for the fill, and that's going to be for the entire existing ground surface. Right? If we put anything on the compaction expansion settings, it's going to override whatever numbers we put right here for our station range. And then for our mass ordinate, when we do our mass haul diagram, we want to have everything set to exclude. For our classifications, we have originally everything was set to designed, and so we want to switch our guardrail and our bridge abutment to ignore. So if you click on it and hit the drop down and set your road guardrail post to ignore, set your road guardrail to ignore, and set your bridge abutment to ignore, and it'll completely ignore those. And east unsuitable material should be set to unsuitable. Everything else looks good. Those are our classifications. The next thing would be for my bridge, I have volume exceptions. Let me go ahead and just delete these so I can create them along with us. So I have volume exceptions that I want to create, and that's from my start station of 38 plus 00 to my stop station of 70 plus 00. So put in your station range, and it's going to completely ignore cut and fill beneath that bridge for the station range. So I click add, and it adds it in here to the list, and that's my volume exception. And then I also have an embankment at 38 plus 00 and at 70 plus 00. I need to add some dirt. So add a pile of dirt. You just use the added quantities. And so my start station and stop station will be the same for these, but I'm going to use 38 plus 00. For start and stop. And I'm going to select my type as fill and type in a volume of 11250 with a factor of 1.2 and add that in. Alright, so we're done with all of our settings here for in-dairy volumes. There are a few other things. There's forced balance, which we could use. It's optional. You can always go back and work that on your own to basically zero out our mass haul along the bridge. Right, so if we can't move dirt from one side of the river to the other, we might have to use that force balance. We also have as built. If we had surfaces that were being created, we could compare several surfaces here for in-dairy volumes, as built surfaces. Then I also have annotation. So this is the way it's going to display. So it's going to give me cut and fill shapes, and it's also going to display cut and fill areas on the bottom left corner and cut and fill volumes on the bottom right. Go ahead and hit apply. And it processes, it does several things at the same time, computes all our inter-area volumes, labels the cross sections. It also gives us cut and fill shapes on the cross sections, and then it generates this report here. And on the left hand side we can choose different style sheets. And by default it gives us the in-dairy volume style sheet. We want to go ahead and switch to the volumes style sheet. So you can click on volumes XSL and it just changes our format for the report. And this report just kind of sits on top here. And so what I want to do with the numbers is I want to round them. So if I go to Tools, Format Options, we can round our linear to 2 decimal places, and it updates on the fly. We can round our cubic units. I guess I had already had them set up to remove the decimal place, but you can click on that and switch it, and it updates on the fly all of our numbers. And of course I could scroll down to the bottom of this report and look at my totals. So total cut and fill, I have my unsuitable material and my different components. If we scroll to a particular station, station 38 plus 00, we can see they mention the added fill quantity. So there's added measurement there. That was our added quantities for the embankment. Also notice that in my list of components you don't see any guardrail. That's been ignored. And our cut and fill factors are applied as well. So I can see my numbers of 1.1, 1.25, 1.12. Go ahead and close the report and dismiss the in-dairy volumes dialog. and you can see here on your cross sections there's cut and fill areas, cut and fill volumes displayed. The areas is what you see on that current individual station. The volumes would be just measuring from this cross section to the previous one. Okay, it's not a running total. It's just from 1300 to 1325. And they are displaying cut and fill areas. If you turn the fill on your view attributes, you can see the shaded area for cut and fill. So, and then also the unsuitable material that's being ignored or removed. Zoom out and look over to the right hand side and you can see your mass haul diagram. That gets created just because we checked that box when we generated the injury volumes.